Straks als je... nou, een beetje klimaat. Ik ga nu 1 keer achter me zitten. Dit jaar jaar.
En dat schijnt haar.
Dus ik ga dus in maart iets serieus doen aan.
Oh, thank you.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Wow, this is very big, no? It's a bit intimidating to sit up here. I'm sorry. Alright. Okay. Alright. Is it okay? Yeah. I can't really see you very well, but I can feel you.
I think it works, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Welcome everybody. At the end of the 1970s, it must have been, I think 1979, Lama Tupten Yeshi visited Amsterdam and he gave a talk in, louder? Thank you. And he gave a talk in the Cosmos, and it was hot. It was summer. What's the Cosmos? The Cosmos was a very experimental place in Amsterdam. It was the place where they had like the first mixed sauna, you know, men and women together.
In Holland?
Yeah, in Holland, yeah. And it was, they had a house dealer who leaked, well, more or less legally, but they also had a lot of yoga, different kinds of yoga. They had a lot of, what? Tai Chi. There was a vegetarian restaurant. And like that, it was quite, in those days it was very experimental and it was very, a lot of maybe the older people here.
You
remember the Cosmos?
Remember?
Yeah, very well, yeah. Yes. So, that was exactly the place. I used to work there. Vera was a customer there, I remember. Yeah. So that was the place, of course, for Lama Yeshe to give a lecture, or to give a whole weekend actually. I just heard that there are some films without sound of those times, so I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Are you going to show it here?
No, I just heard this evening that that Paul over there has them.
Oh.
I didn't know.
Can we watch them afterwards?
No, he doesn't have them with him.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. But when I get them, I'll send them to you, okay? Okay? Anyway, it was a really hot summer. It was a very hot summer. And Lama Yeshe really suffered from the heat. You could tell we put fans there and so, but he never complained. He never complained. But, yeah. Anyway, we felt for him. Anyway, for those who don't know, Lama Yeshe was the founder of the FPMT, and that's the international organization that Maitreya Instituut is a part of. And now the spiritual head of, director of the FPMT is Lama Thupten Yeshe's closest heart disciple, Lama Thupten Zopa Rinpoche. Lama Yeshe passed away in 1984, and in 1985, there was a baby boy born to two of his close Spanish disciples. And they named him after the center that they were connected to. The center was called Osel, and the baby boy was therefore named Osel. That little boy was recognized not all that long afterwards by His Holiness the Dalai Lama as the reincarnation of Lama Thupten Yeshe. And he spent most of his youth in the south of India in one of the largest Tibetan Buddhist monasteries there, Sera. About, well, I guess in his mid-teens, he demonstrated what I think is very typical teenage behavior. It could be his Spanish blood, kind of, that fiery Spanish blood coming up. And he decided that he wanted a different life.
That was not me. I was 18. So.
You were 18?
Yeah.
Ah.
Almost 19.
Oh, okay. In his late teens,
Yeah.
he demonstrated what, you know, he wanted more. If I say it wrong, you let me know. Huh? You will. Okay. But wanted more of a Western education in a Western environment.
Samsara.
Samsara. But you also wanted to be, I thought also you wanted to be more with your family. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that I got right. Okay. So, since then he's been doing a lot of studying and traveling, and he can tell you about those things if he wishes, but that's for him to do. But the fact that he knows and is formed by both the Eastern world and the Western world, I find interesting because it gives him a unique perspective. So, I'm very interested to hear what he has to say. And now it's not summer, it's not hot. It's winter in Holland, it's cold, it's foggy, it's frosty, it's bad weather, but he's also not complaining. That's I have to say. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming to talk to us and to talk with us, because that's also his style, as you've already probably noticed. He's not somebody who just gives a lecture. He wants to talk to and with people. Okay, thank you. So I hope this stays, because it was put it closer to you.
Hello. Okay, can everybody hear me properly? Yeah?
Yes.
I'm gonna try to. Maybe like that's better. More comfortable. It's okay for the camera?
What?
The microphone?
Yeah,
It's not blocking.
no. Well,
Okay. So, how are you today? It's good. It's not too late. No? You're fresh?
wow.
Wow. So how many people are here today, approximately? Anybody know?
80, I think.
80? 80.
I think
More?
a little bit more. Around 100.
100?
Yeah.
And how many people are from the center? Like who come normally to the center? Wow. And how many new people who've never really... Wow, okay. And how many people are kind of familiar with my talks? Like on YouTube or... Okay. So that I can repeat myself then. It makes it easier. And think maybe many people think that maybe we don't meditate every day, but as a matter of fact, I think we meditate half of our lives when we sleep. His Holiness, he says, sleep is the best meditation. So we're all meditators, by the way. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big deal. You know. So let's maybe do some meditation, some active meditation. If you want, maybe we can just do like 1 minute, 2 minutes, just breathing in, breathing out. Breathing, it's instead of just nose breathing, try to breathe from like down here, from the throat. Instead of like that, try that type of breathing. When you do that, it's more deep. Like that, instead of the, not that one, that's as deep as you can. Then. Okay, we try to do that a little bit. Then we close our eyes and breathe in, breathe out. The first feeling we have is gratefulness. Gratefulness for the body we have, which is working for us since the moment we were conceived. The heart is pumping all our whole lives. The body is functioning for us all the time, non-stop. Even if we mistreat the body, even if we abuse the body, it's still continuously working so hard for us, for our experience of life. So we have the gratefulness for having this. Then the clothes we have, the food we have in our stomachs, the energy we have, the mind stream, the air, the company, warmth, and the possibility to take the time to just chill. Especially in a place like Amsterdam. Okay. So this time we just took is relatively, it can be infinite or it can be just 1 minute. But it's always the same moment. It's always here and now, all the time. Hello? So anyways, yeah, so let's get started, right? So what we're going to talk about was diminishing the ego, right? So is everybody interested in that? Yeah?
Yes.
Because first, I think the first step is to recognize what the ego is. You know? I think it's very important. I think that's already maybe 50% of the job would be to recognize. We think the ego exists, that it's really there. But if you actually check, you can't find it. It's where is it? You can't really find it. You can search all day, all night, you will not find it. But the ego, somehow there's something there, right? Makes you react when you feel unjustly treated, or when you feel stressed, or when you feel hungry maybe, right? There's some kind of reaction, something happens that makes you react. Sometimes very strongly, sometimes more passively, but there's something there that makes you unhappy, right? And then when you react like that, in a maybe negative kind of way, most of the times the result is suffering. Does everybody agree with that? When we react, like for example, let's talk about anger, for example. Anger is like an uninvited guest that comes to our house when we are just like suddenly we're like relaxed and everything's okay, and or at least it seems to be okay. And then suddenly, for example, if you're at home and let's say a family member just opens the door without knocking, comes into your room without even knocking, suddenly boom, would you feel a little bit upset? Yeah? Yes. It would be like, why didn't you knock the door? Why didn't you call me, right? It would be like, who invited you? Who gives you, what gives you the right to think you can just barge into my room like that? That's a family member. How about a friend? Somebody you know all your life, suddenly just comes in like that. You'd also feel a little bit upset, right? So why is it that when the ego or anger, for example, they just come in and take over? Like they just barge in, like suddenly, boom, open the door, and they act like they're at home, that's their house, that's where they belong, they're the boss. Why is it that we invite them in and offer them a cup of tea? Why is it? As if, that's their right. It's not. I mean, that's because we believe the ego exists. We have this sense of, this purpose of kind of like, me. Actually this concept of me, it started very, very long ago when we were born, a little bit after when we were born, when we started speaking maybe. The first words you speak, which are they? Can someone help me? What are the first words you say? Yeah, my papa, my mama, right? So already the first words that we learn implicate me, mine. So it's something that's part of society and the system, the individualistic point of view, also the collective kind of culture also has that in a different way. But we all tend to follow this kind of concept as if it's very important, right? In Buddhism, in Dharma, it talks about selflessness, it talks about the non-cherishing mind, because we are very accustomed to cherishing ourselves, like to have this self-cherishing point of view, which we don't realize maybe at the moment, but it causes a lot of suffering. In the long run, it causes a lot of suffering. And we don't want to suffer, do we? I mean, who wants to suffer? Maybe some masochist, but their suffering is still pleasure, so it's not exactly suffering, right? I mean, it's a different type of concept of suffering. So I don't think even the masochist wants to suffer, because their suffering is different from ours, but still it's the same idea, right, of pain or unhappiness. So nobody really wants to suffer, but we make the conditions to suffer all the time. It's a little bit like I like the example. Do you know Pema Chodron? Anila Pema Chodron? Anyone? I went to one of her talks, which I found very interesting, very helpful. And she was talking about one of the examples of the monkeys in India, how they capture the monkeys, the monkey traps. Do you know about how they capture some monkeys in India? It's very interesting. They have these coconuts with a hole inside, and they put like candies or like goodies inside the coconut. And the hole is just barely big enough for them to put their hand inside. But once they grab the candy and make a fist, they can't take it out anymore. So they're holding the candy so tightly because they really believe they can run away with the candy. So when the hunters come and they're scared for their life, some of them even have two coconuts in their hand, two candies. Some have only one candy, some two candies. More greedy, right? So they really think they can run away with the two candies. They really believe that. And they will not let go. I don't think any of the monkeys actually let go of the candy. Literally. And they'll try really hard to try to run and try to climb the trees, but they can't because they're handicapped. So maybe even some have 4 candies, I don't know. Yeah. So the hunters come and they capture the monkeys, and then maybe the monkeys have to spend the rest of their lives in the hands of the hunters, maybe in a circus or as meat. for food. I don't know. But either way, they have a pretty bad time. So this is because they thought they could, really get away with the candy, and they did not want to let go of the candy, because if they let go, then they can take out the hand and they can run away. So this is a little bit like the metaphor of samsara. Everybody is familiar with the concept of samsara? Yes, everybody? Okay. If anybody wants to know what samsara is, anybody? Samsara, okay. So samsara is, the concept of samsara, according to Dharma or Buddhism, or the Buddha's teachings, is the wheel of life, right? It's a never-ending story where we are not able to escape from suffering and the cycle of this kind of way of being born and dying and being reborn again, always being stuck in this kind of duality, this kind of like concept of me, attachment, fear, misery, suffering, and somehow we're stuck there, and life after life, and sometimes we even go backwards. We de-evolve. So we create the cause to be reborn as sentient beings who create more bad karma. Karma, you know what karma is, right? It's like the law of cause and effect. So what you give, you receive also, in a way. Karma is like an imprint you create in your mind stream, which follows you from lifetime to lifetime. It can be very subtle. There's many different types of karma. But yeah, the main concept of karma is it's like the law of physics kind of thing, but connected with our self, our being. So it's an imprint. It stays with us and follows us, and according to how we act and how we act and what we do, through the body, speech, and mind, then it creates a cause for the future lives, or even this life, to somehow receive something. Many times it's multiplied. So good things and bad things. That's a theory, at least. I'm sure we can kind of relate to that. So going back to samsara, we're stuck in samsara also through the karma and lifetimes like that. And one of the reasons we're stuck in samsara is because of the attachment, right? So the monkey example is very good, because it's a little bit like that, the metaphor. We can let go of attachment, we can let go of that. But we don't want to, it's too juicy. And we really, pleasure or happiness, the concept of happiness, which is temporary, is not really stable. I mean, if happiness really was stable, if it was really existed the way we think it does, it would be a state of mind. We would always be happy. But it's up and down, up and down. And in a way, it makes it more interesting maybe, but at the same time, it makes it very difficult. But also, thanks to that, it makes us think and desire to be free from samsara. Because, for example, like the gods, there's many different types of gods, the god realms. Some gods live up to 10,000 years. This is like theories again. But, so they say that there are some gods that live up to 10,000 years in another dimension, in another place. So when you create certain karma, you create the cause to be reborn as a god, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. I mean, of course, you live for 10,000 years, no sickness, no suffering, total pleasure every day, all the time. You're just enjoying good smells, good food, good views, pleasure, physical, everything, amazing, all the time, for 10,000 years. The thing is, at the end of the 10,000 years, they have exactly 10,000, depending on the level of the gods, some less, some more, but in that realm would be 10,000 years. So that's just an example I'm using. At the end of those 10,000 years, let's say maybe the last couple months, maybe, of their lifespan, their body starts to smell a little bit. So the other gods, they smell it, and then somehow, because they don't want to recognize that they too are impermanent in that way. One day also they will die, or their lifespan will finish. So they start to ignore those gods. The gods that are starting to smell a little bit, they ignore them. So they become kind of outcasts. Nobody wants to talk to them, nobody wants to look at them, they don't exist anymore. So they are, for the last months or I don't know, maybe years, I'm not sure, they spend in solitariness. And they, because they're gods, they have the ability to be able to see their future lives, and they have certain realizations also. So maybe after 10,000 years, they spent all the good karma, you know? It's like having money in the bank, and then you spend all the money in the bank, and you're like in the last euros or dollars, and then you're like, okay, what am I going to do now? Now I have to start working again, or I have to, you know? So in that sense, in that case, maybe they would see they were going to be reborn as pigs. Maybe they see a family of pigs living in a dump, like dirt, like, you know, really dirty conditions, just the kind of suffering they have, the ignorance, the greed and the attachment is so strong. You know, some pigs don't see the sky until they die. That's what the Tibetans, it's a Tibetan saying, is don't be like a pig that you only see the sky when you die. Which is kind of true sometimes. Pigs are always looking at the ground looking for food, right? So they don't really look up. If they did, they would see the sky and they'd be like, wow, this is amazing. Anyway, so these gods, they're dying, they're suffering. The amount of suffering for those gods at that time is so big because they have the ability to see the future life. They have the knowledge to understand that they've spent the good karma, they've enjoyed a lot, and now it's time to suffer. So the suffering is so big, you know. And then that's where the regret comes. Oh, I didn't practice Dharma. I didn't create the condition for a future life to have the potential, the possibility to be able to practice Dharma, or to create a good cause, helping other people, you know. So we humans have that you know, potential, that opportunity, because we suffer. So it's good, you know, we can actually use the suffering in order to make the decision to say, oh, I want to do something about this. Okay, so ego and self-cherishing mind is very similar, right? And the self-cherishing mind brings a lot of suffering, which in this case is actually not very good, because through suffering we just kind of, you know, like we hurt ourselves, you know, and especially if we don't see it. But the moment we start to see the pattern of our mind, of how through self-cherishing we create more suffering, then we can really start evolving. We can really start working that. And we can use it to really start changing the pattern and the habit. That somehow maybe society has kind of, you know, influenced us. So that's why they say the perfect human rebirth, you know, because we have the capacity to practice Dharma, to help other people, to have the understanding of our potential. And also because we suffer, it makes us more, in Spanish we say espabilado, you know, it's like aware, more like awake, you know, like if we didn't suffer, we kind of would be like the gods, you know, we wouldn't have that wish to improve or to actually create the cause, to keep evolving. So in karma you evolve, you de-evolve. The more you do something positive, the more you create a habit to do more positive things. So it becomes easier to do it. And you actually take pleasure in doing it, you enjoy doing it. And maybe when you're reborn in situations where it's much easier, much faster to keep evolving. And when you de-evolve, it's the same thing, but the other way, you know. So maybe maybe you're reborn as a tiger who has to kill and make other animals suffer in order to evolve. I mean, in order to survive. Or maybe you're reborn like in a very violent neighborhood where maybe you have, in order to survive, you have to become part of a gang. And in order to be part of a gang, you have to show that you are, you know, worth it. So you have to kill another human being. If not, you will die, or they will kill you. So you have to survive, and that's the situation where you're put in. And sometimes, because of ignorance, because of a lack of understanding, of lack of information, you know, it's very hard to get out of those situations. Maybe your family was butchers all their life, so you have to be a butcher too. You know, and you don't have the capacity to understand that that's bad, even though when you're doing it, maybe you don't feel good. But as you de-evolve, some people actually take pleasure in hurting other sentient beings. They actually take pleasure, they actually enjoy it. You know, so that's even more de-evolving. So you're creating the habit. It's easier every time to do that. So that's so dangerous, you know, because it's so easy to go one way or the other. So right now we have the opportunity to evolve, to go forward, you know. And so that's something to really be grateful about, to have this opportunity. And in this planet, as human beings, there's many places where people, you know, they don't even have the opportunity to sit down and think about that. In China, for example, you know, I mean, in some workplaces, they have anti-suicide nets. You know, for example, people in America, soldiers who served in Afghanistan, ex-veterans, there's a, I think, about, you know, an estimate, you know, average of 25 ex-veterans who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, they commit suicide. A day, per day, 25 commit suicide per day in average. You know, so, you know, I mean, it's not easy for many people. It's very difficult. You know, so that's where I think compassion comes in, and also realizing that we are very lucky. Okay. Anyways, I don't want to bring down the. You know, we have to be happy. It's important, but at least to be aware, you know, of the opportunities we have. You know, because sometimes the self-searching mind starts saying, "Oh, poor me, look at me," you know, "Oh," and we start putting ourselves down. You know, we start to limit ourselves, and that's a big mistake. You know, because I mean, we are beautiful. You know, we have an amazing potential, and you know it. You know, but sometimes we just try to not, you know, move forward because somehow you're scared of your limit. I mean, you're scared of your potential. Sorry. Scared of your potential, so you limit yourself, and that's very dangerous. You know, I think most of us, we do that. Most of us, we limit ourselves. Now, right now, I'm very lucky because I'm very hot. I'm